Coming in 2025, director Lim Dae-hee and action powerhouse Dong-seok team up for the explosive thriller The Holy Night, Demon Hunters. In this gripping tale, Dong-seok plays a physical exorcist with unmatched strength and gritty charm, taking audiences on a heart-pounding demon hunting ride. The story kicks off with a police chief bursting into a low-profile exorcist office, urgency written all over his face. Inside sits Bao, the legendary brawler exorcist, awaiting his next mission with calm intensity. The chief delivers grim news: a young girl has gone missing. The entire force is searching, but during the operation, 2 officers were killed and the girl is still nowhere to be found. Survivors point to a nearby villa, where a sinister cult is believed to be holding the girl captive. Faced with this deadly challenge, Bao doesn't flinch. He takes the mission head-on. In Korea, some have turned their backs on God, choosing instead to worship demons. These cultists gain unholy power from the underworld and roam in search of human vessels for the demons to inhabit. It's a rising threat that even the police can't handle. That's where Bao comes in. He's the expert in putting evil back where it belongs. Bao and his team head straight for the cult's hideout, a villa steeped in a suffocating, eerie atmosphere. As they walk the shadowy corridors, 3 henchmen appear, their eyes gleaming with hostility. But Bao doesn't blink. He swaggers forward, fearless and ready to throw down. Inside, a possession ritual is underway. The room is filled with die-hard demon worshippers. Rage flashes in Bao's eyes. He charges forward without hesitation. Every punch he throws packs bone-crushing force, knocking souls loose from bodies. The cultists drop one by one, overwhelmed by Bao's raw power. Meanwhile, Sharon, the team's spiritual exorcist, slips past the chaos and rushes to the possessed girl. She calmly and precisely steadied the girl's head. Sharon's pupils turned ghostly white. She draws a silver mirror, begins chanting, and launches into a sacred exorcism. The girl writhes and screams, her body twisting under the demon's grip. Kim Gun, the team's meticulous note-taker, documents every moment of the spiritual battle. Suddenly, Kim notices something strange. Each cultist bears a mysterious tattoo behind the ear, a possible demonic symbol. Then, the girl stops thrashing, her body relaxes, the demon is gone. By this point, Bao had already laid every cultist flat on the ground. Mission seemingly complete. Back at the agency, Kim Gun dove straight into research. It didn't take long for him to uncover the meaning of the tattoo. It was the mark of Beelzebub. A chill crept through the team. Beelzebub wasn't just any demon, he was a lord of hell, a force beyond imagination. Only someone truly powerful could hope to stand against him. But the calm didn't last long. Barely settled back in, another case came knocking. This time, it was a woman named Unwon, a doctor at a church-run hospital. Panic written all over her face. Unwon explained that her younger sister had been experiencing unexplainable phenomena, things science couldn't touch. As a result, she'd been locked in the hospital's psychiatric ward for 5 long years. Bao was ready to take the case until Unwon mentioned that she was referred by Father Mark. At the sound of that name, Bao's demeanor changed in an instant. The warmth in his expression turned ice-cold. Desperate, Unwon had no choice but to hand a USB drive to Sharon, begging her to take a look before making any decisions. Later, back at the hospital, Unwon glanced at the surveillance monitors out of habit and froze. Her sister was gone. Panic surged through her. She sprinted toward Unesio's room like a woman possessed. She threw open the door only to find the room completely empty. Still shaken, Unwon rushed to report the incident to Father Mark. The next morning, the one person Bao never wanted to see showed up at his office: Father Mark himself. It turns out the 2 men had grown up in the same orphanage. 10 years ago, Bao had been possessed by a powerful demon. He lost control and slaughtered everyone in the orphanage. Father Mark tried everything to exorcise the demon, but in the end, all he could do was seal it inside Bao's body. Ever since that day, Bao has lived in constant torment, battling to keep the demon buried deep within, never letting it take over again. Meanwhile, Sharon opened the USB drive Unwon had left behind. On screen, she watched surveillance footage. Unesio's blanket was yanked off by an invisible force. After a while, Eun-won made her way upstairs only to find the room empty once again. Frantically, she searched every corner. At that moment, the motion tracking camera suddenly jerked to life and began to swivel. Just as Eun-won's panic peaked, a slow, ominous thump-thump echoed through the air. She turned and saw Eun-seo banging her head repeatedly against the wall. The atmosphere was chilling. Suddenly, Eun-seo stopped. In her hand, no one knew when it appeared, was a knife. It was clearly a sign of possession, but how had Eun-seo come into contact with such dark, demonic forces? Then, another piece of footage caught the team's attention. Back when Eun-won had moved into her new home, she'd hired a security company to install an anti-theft system. Sharp-eyed Sharon noticed something alarming. One of the installers had a tattoo on his neck, the mark of Beelzebub. This wasn't random, the possession had been premeditated. Bao, fueled by his unshakable sense of justice, could no longer stand by. He called Eun-won and said he'd take the case.
혹시 시간 되시면 잠깐 보시죠.
The team headed to the hospital. Sharon gently placed her hand on Eun-seo's head, softly asking her name. The demon burst into a manic laugh, and the hospital bed began to spin violently. Suddenly, the lights began to flicker. A sinister presence filled the room. Eun-seo, ghost-like, rose to her feet, balancing eerily on the edge of the bed. Sharon didn't hesitate. She launched into an exorcism chant. The demon twisted in visible agony. Bao pressed Eun-seo down again, while Sharon activated her white eye state, trying to forcibly extract the demon, but they had underestimated the enemy. By the time the team regained their senses, the demon had vanished without a trace. Eun-won rushed to the surveillance room only to discover that Eun-seo was already heading straight for the hospital's main exit. The team scrambled after her, but suddenly, every door in the psychiatric ward burst open. The patients, like puppets on invisible strings, charged forward like zombies. Seeing this, Bao grabbed a nearby chair. With sheer brute strength, he smashed a path through the chaos. Meanwhile, Eun-seo reached the hospital entrance. A security guard tried to stop her but froze mid-step, collapsed to his knees, and began slamming his head into the floor over and over. Eun-won chased her sister out of the building. Eun-seo finally stopped right in the middle of a busy road, surrounded by speeding cars. For a brief second, Eun-seo seemed to regain consciousness. Seeing her sister in so much pain, Eun-won couldn't bear it. Without thinking, she ran into traffic. Suddenly, Eun-seo let out a scream and collapsed. Eun-won sprinted forward and caught her in her arms just as a massive, out-of-control truck came barreling toward them. In the nick of time, Bao's car slammed into the truck, knocking it off course. They had just narrowly escaped death. The team realized the demon had fully rooted itself inside Eun-seo. It could now control her consciousness. Exorcising it would be extremely dangerous. To prevent harming others, they decided to leave the hospital and return to Eun-seo's villa. Back at the house, they locked the doors tight and even tied them shut with chairs to keep the demon from escaping. Sharon drew 2 protective salt circles on the floor. It was time to begin the exorcism. The ritual would unfold in 6 stages, each one designed to force the demon to reveal its name. Only by knowing its true name could it be defeated. Sharon stepped into the circle and pressed a stalk of bamboo against Eun-seo's forehead. Bamboo was a known spiritual purifier, and the demon screamed in agony. Next, Sharon dipped the bamboo leaves in holy water and flung them at Eun-seo. Suddenly, Eun-seo seemed to come to her senses, pleading tearfully with the group. Eun-won's heart ached, but she knew better. It was just another illusion, a demon's trick. Sharon pulled out her silver mirror once more and began chanting the exorcism spell. But in the very next moment,
내 이름이 알고 싶어? 내 capitrete perfettiamo por hu laune.
the entire house was suddenly plunged into shadow, as a powerful wave of evil spread through the air. Sensing something was off, Bao immediately began checking the surroundings. Then he heard it, faint breathing sounds coming from inside the wall. Without hesitation, Bao unleashed 3 thunderous punches, blasting right through the wall. Behind it, cultists had been hiding, summoned by the demon's whispers. With no time to waste, Bao transformed once again into a one-man wrecking crew, launching into a fierce battle with the intruders. The scene cuts back to the room where the ground is trembling beneath their feet. The salt circle began to fracture. Sharon quickly raised her palm, pouring her full strength into the exorcism chant to reinforce the seal. Meanwhile, Bao was locked in a brutal fight. These cultists had drawn strength from the demon itself, their bodies unnaturally resilient, but Bao's fists were relentless. Blow after bone-crushing blow, he finally began to break their will. In a daze, Bao caught sight of a man trying to break down the door. Mustering every last ounce of strength, he launched a final punch, sending the man straight to hell. As the exorcism reached its midpoint, Sharon called for a break, giving the team a chance to regroup, but Eun-won remained motionless, unresponsive to their calls, like something had taken hold of her mind. Thankfully, the danger passed without harm, but her trance made one thing chillingly clear: there was more than one demonic presence in the villa. Sharon moved to the living room, tuning into the lingering evil in the air. Soon, she stopped at a wall, gently pressing her palm against it. Bao noticed and immediately tore the wallpaper away. What they saw stunned them. The wall was covered in strange, arcane symbols. Sharon recognized them instantly: Ekbo runes, an ancient language said to be used by demons. That could only mean one thing: the entire house was cursed. A trap had been laid long before the sisters ever moved in. Eun-won suddenly realized no wonder the villa was so cheap. Bao grabbed a small hammer. As Sharon chanted her exorcism spell, he slammed it into the wall with full force. A burst of sparks and thick black smoke erupted from the wall. The demonic symbols burned away, vanishing into the air. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream rang out from upstairs. Kim Gun bolted into the room. He found Eun-seo sitting up, seemingly back to her senses. She said something had just left her body. Kim Gun, caught in the moment, began to approach her, but Bao stepped in, just in time. Realizing its deception had been exposed, the demon dropped the act and launched a full-blown psychic assault.
네가 그 불쌍한 아이들을 다 죽게 만들었잖아.
아저씨, 살려주세요, 아저씨.
Bao was instantly overwhelmed by a flood of painful memories. The next second, a shadowy figure of the demon appeared by his ear, whispering dark reminders of his past sins. Consumed by rage, Bao lashed out, grabbing the demon by the throat, but in reality, he was choking Sharon. Thankfully, in the final moment, Bao snapped out of it, breaking free from the demon's mind control. As the demon cackled with cruel amusement, Sharon, now recovered, decided it was time to turn up the heat. She pulled out a pair of blessed holy swords, then slashed through the air where the demon lurked. Each swing cut through the unseen with sizzling force, releasing black smoke with every strike. These soul-cutting attacks sent the demon writhing in agony. Suddenly, the demon exhaled a chilling breath. The room's temperature plummeted. Ice crystals formed across Sharon's swords. For just a second, her focus slipped. The demon slipped into her mind and began whispering temptations. "Let me go, and I'll grant you power beyond your dreams, even the secret to eternal life." But Sharon held firm. She pressed her hand against the demon's head from behind, continuing to demand its true name. But no matter how hard she pushed, the demon remained silent. Watching her sister suffer, Eun-won's bleeding heart got the better of her. She pleaded with Sharon to pause the ritual. The demon immediately grinned victory in its eyes. The ground began to tremble violently. The demon broke loose. When the team came to their senses, the room was empty. The demon was gone. Then they saw it. In a flash, it vanished again. Bao sprang into action, searching every inch of the villa. He entered a cluttered storage room, where a handleless secret door caught his eye. No problem, Bao blasted the door apart with a single punch. Elsewhere, Eun-won was monitoring the security feed when she suddenly heard Eun-seo's voice coming from inside a cabinet behind her. Trembling, she stepped forward. In the next instant, the cabinet toppled toward her. At the last second, Bao appeared, pulling her out of harm's way. But there was no time to breathe. A blood-curdling scream came from the living room. Kim Gun was being lifted into the air by an invisible force. Sharon jumped into action, chanting an exorcism spell and driving the demon away. But the protective symbols had already been erased and Eun-seo had vanished without a trace. Just what kind of evil force had they awakened? Eun-won suddenly remembered there was still one place in the villa they hadn't searched: the storage shed. Bao rushed outside and charged into the shed. He yanked back the old rug and there it was, a hidden cellar entrance. Without hesitation, Bao descended into the darkness only to find several of the demon's cult followers lying in wait. A brawl erupted instantly, but with his enchanted fists, Bao tore through them with sheer, brutal force. Even infused with demonic power, the cultists were no match for him. But just when it seemed over, one of them pulled a dirty trick. Bao let his guard down, and a noose was suddenly yanked tight around his neck, suspending him in the air. In a moment of desperation, Bao exploded with raw strength and broke free. But before he could rise, a dagger plunged into his shoulder, blood pouring out. Sensing his weakness, the demon hiding inside him stirred, trying to seize control of his body once again. Meanwhile, the others were still hunting for the demon's main body. They turned and there it was. Lunisio hung suspended midair, her face now fully twisted into a demonic form. At that moment, Bao arrived, battered but still standing. Lunisio was shrouded in a holy aura laced with black smoke. Its power was so intense, Bao couldn't get close. Then, from the demon's scattered words, Sharon finally pieced together its true name.
아이들을 제물로 잡아먹는
Armed with that knowledge, she began chanting the banishment spell, but the demon rose higher. Pots and pans in the kitchen lifted and whirled through the air, trying to disrupt the exorcism. As Sharon finished the chant, Lunisio crashed to the ground hard. A stream of black mist burst from her abdomen, swirling into a massive vortex. It was a portal, a gateway between hell and earth. Its pull began sucking in everything around it. Lunisio floated upward once again. The demon was trying to drag her body back into hell for eternal torment. Unwon grabbed her and held on with all her strength. Kim Gun tossed out a length of climbing rope, anchoring them both against the vacuum-like force. Everyone gave everything they had to save Lunisio. Sharon, on the brink of collapse, knew this was the demon's weakest moment. With one final breath, she chanted the sacred exorcism. A flash of crimson light erupted and the demon was finally banished back to hell. But its true form wasn't finished. It clawed at the edge of the portal, trying to drag itself back out. Then everything went still. Peace returned at last. Lunisio opened her eyes, her gaze now clear, filled with hope for the future. After a battle that shook them all, they had stared into the face of evil and lived to tell the tale. They now understood just how powerful and insidious these demons truly were, and more than ever, they were committed to the fight. And as for Bao, the legendary physical exorcist, his battle wasn't over. He would continue his war against the darkness, one demon at a time, writing the next chapter in his heroic legacy.